Hi everybody, this is Zach Alexander. Thanks for your interest in downloading this free data science portfolio template for your projects. In order to get started, I think as mentioned in the article, the first thing that you'll need is Git and a GitHub account. All the instructions for setting up both those accounts are in the article, and you can do a quick Google search to figure out exactly how to set those up on your local machine. But once you have those set up and ready to go, the first thing that you'll want to do is navigate over to the link provided in the article on GitHub where the template lives, and you'll want to just clone the repository. So you can do that by going to the repository, copying the repository link, and then opening up a terminal on your computer. And I use VS Code for a lot of my coding, but you can also just use a typical terminal window if you'd like to as well. You'll want to kind of navigate over to a directory that you want to save it to. I've just saved it to my desktop for now, but the basic command for doing and cloning the repository is git clone, and then you're going to want to copy and paste the link provided for the repository. You're going to hit enter, and it's going to unpack all the materials necessary for the template. So now if I go to my desktop, right, I've actually downloaded the materials to my local machine, and you can see all the files here. I'm actually going to load it into VS Code so it's easier to see here, and we're going to just add a folder to the workspace here, and we're going to go back to the data science portfolio template, add this in here, and you can see here this is the entire set of files for the template itself. Now the next thing you'll need to do is you're going to have to actually install Node and the package manager npm. If you install npm, it's actually going to automatically install Node.js for you. So the instructions are also in the article on how to do that, so I won't go into detail there. After you do so, you'll want to check to make sure that you have Node on your local machine. And you can see here, if you type in and check the version, my version that I'm running on my local machine is 12.161. And that'll be a good next step in how to do this. After that, the next thing you'll have to do is you'll have to download the npm install the Angular CLI, which again is an instruction in the article. So I won't go into that, and I already have it downloaded on my local machine, so I won't go there. But the next thing after that, after you've got the Angular CLI and the command line interface set up, we can really start to hone in on the template itself here, which is exciting. So in order to do that, the first thing that we'll have to do is actually install all of the Node modules that go along with the template and the packages that are important to actually run the application. So it's a very quick command. You can actually just first we'll have to cd into our project directory in our root folder here, and I'm just going to clear the terminal here so that we have a lot of extra space. And then we're just going to type in npm install, and what this is going to do, it's going to take a bit of time, but what this does is actually installs all those packages that we need for our project itself, and it's going to take a few minutes here. But you can see I'll kind of go quickly through the structure of the Angular project itself as this is downloading. So you can see in this root folder here, data science portfolio template, all the files to run the application and the template itself are all located here. Pretty organized, and I'll go into a few of these files as we go along. Some of them are less important than others, and if you are interested in web development, I definitely recommend diving into what each one of these files means. But for the sake of getting this up and running for you, really we're going to typically go into this src folder here, where it's going to have a lot of the components and the information that we'd have available for running the application. So in this structure here, you're going to have your components. We're just going to have a basic home component, which is our home screen component here. And this is where a lot of the HTML and the CSS, I'm using Sass here, so it's just point or .s CSS here, but it's basically the same thing. If you're interested in web development, web design, learning Sass is always good, but not necessary. But we also have a footer component, we have a navbar component. I created a resume page that you can fill in, and these two here are actually going to be on our load screen for our home page here. It's going to load a pretty cool bar chart and line chart with an area chart underneath of it, just as like a cool styling thing for the front page. And this is all based on D3.js. So I'll go into a bit of detail about those there. So those are the components, right? And how Angular works is it's going to insert these components into your application in code chunks. So it's a great way to kind of organize your code. And this is a very basic and straightforward application. But you can see here we have a footer, we have a nav bar, and then we have our home page. And basically we can just insert these into where we want to in different parts of the application. So this is still installing. It's going to take a bit of time. There's a lot of packages that we will need to install here, but I'll quickly kind of go into the home page here when we're doing a bit of editing in a few minutes, which I'll kind of set up in a second and show you. Mainly most of the editing, so that you can customize it for your own sake, is in this home component here. So we're going to navigate into the src app folder, the components folder, and then home. And then you're going to click in here, and you can actually see we're going to load in the HTML for this specific page per se. And so here's the HTML, right? So if you don't know much about HTML, it's okay. I think for the most part, I've tried my best to kind of edit or put in edit statements here. So if you get lost or don't know where exactly to kind of edit things, you can actually just take a look at where those designations are and really just kind of edit some of this text in here to make it fit your your purview, so you can get this up and running pretty quickly. But we have it set up in sections here, and as I was mentioning before, these components we can actually add in here, right? There's a whole separate navbar component that I built out on this side that you can actually just insert right into the home page there. And that's the beauty of Angular, is working in components, and a lot of these JavaScript frameworks are. And so, again, I won't go into too much detail there, but that's just an example. But really for you, after you've downloaded this application, I think the best thing to do would be to really go in, find and navigate through some of these HTML pages to really kind of reference and kind of change up some of the projects that you have been working on. So you can change the title to the project name that you have there. You can actually add some description to it, and you'll see what this looks like in a few minutes when the npm install is finished. And then you're going to be able to continually go through here, edit this up, and then really we'll kind of do a quick deployment so you can get a sense of how this is actually going to work from there. So if you need to style anything too, you can actually go on the home page specifically. You can actually go into the CSS here, or the Sass, and you can find a lot of the different type of background and things like that. There's not a ton here that you really need to kind of edit up here. I did add some comments in here so you can change your reference. So I added a sample photo in here into this folder. So if you navigate, this is basically just telling you where exactly this image is. So if you want to change the image, you're actually just going to go into your assets folder here, and we're actually going to see these sample photos here. You can actually just change it or add in your own photo to this folder, this directory, and then just reference that in here, and it should load into the front end of the page there. So hopefully it makes it very easy for you to be able to go in and do that. And wouldn't be too complicated. Okay, so this is loaded in. We've installed all of our packages. So now with everything ready to go, I'm going to clear the screen again so we get a better look at it this way. And now the next thing that we're going to do is actually we're going to run this application locally. And we can do this by doing npm start, right? And that's actually going to start our application locally. It's going to fire up a second here. And so ng-serve is the Angular command for actually doing that with the Angular CLI, but npm is actually linked into this application itself. So when you hit npm start, it actually diverts right to ng-serve there. So you can either do ng-serve or npm start. Either way, it's going to start it up for you. It's going to take a second to actually load up here, but when it does, we're actually going to be able to see our application locally in the template that's set up here. So we'll give this a second to actually load in. You can see the development server is starting up here. It's using the modules that we just installed or downloaded into our local directory here, and go from there. So Just a few more seconds here. And almost there. Okay, and we're ready to go. So if it compiles successfully, right, you're going to see a lot of green text here. It's going to say compiled successfully. So in order for us to view this, we're actually just going to go to localhost 4200, which is where we pointed this for now. We're going to hit enter, and it's actually going to load in the template for the portfolio itself. So this is, a local representation of the website that you can actually create for your own self. But right here, there's a lot of things that you can customize, right? So we can put your name up here in the navigation bar. We can actually edit up the photo here to actually change it to yours. You can put in your job title and your name, etc. I've also built out an entire resume page here that you can actually just edit up yourself by adding in career profile and all kinds of things like that. So I won't go into too much detail or take too much time on that, but it's going to be the same premise. You're going to have to know a little bit of HTML, but I think it shouldn't take too long for those that know a little bit of HTML already. But here's again the projects that you can actually add in here. The descriptions. I've added these default photos in here, but this template itself is customizable. I've also actually linked it with a Medium widget. So if you are someone that writes on Medium and you want to link that to your page itself, I made it very easy for you. I've actually loaded in the modules for the widget already, so I'll show you how to change that up. And then I added another section down here. You can either take it out or edit it up. And then there's the footer information. So pretty straightforward, but overall, right, I think it's a great way to quickly get a lot of your projects online. And it does actually load this really cool D3JS graph here, which I set up. I did want to say too, it's actually fully responsive. So if you're worried about it being on mobile here, right? So on page load, it's actually going to load in on all different devices very well. So you can see here, right? It actually fits the screen nicely, and it actually conforms to the device that you're working with. So you can change it up and kind of see the different mobile devices, but it should be fully responsive here. The reason the graph does that is it actually reconfigures the size on page load. So anytime you're not going to be navigating much on the screen until you actually load the screen, so it'll actually be fully responsive for any viewer that's going to come in here. So anyways, we'll go back out, reload the page, so we have it here. Now, in order to edit any aspect of this, right, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to go back to those HTML files, which I was showing you before, and we're actually just going to find a few of those places where we're going to edit up some of the content. So I've navigated over to inside of the root directory of the name. You're going to go into src, application, components. Where all your components live, there's HTML, right? And all you're going to do is you can actually change any aspect of this here. So if you want to change, I've said edit content below. I'm Zach, that's my name, and I'm a data engineer, right? So we can actually change that. And then if you hit the save button, so we're going to save it, you can see it actually recompiled our code. And if you go back, it actually reloads it in. And now you can see that Zach and data engineer are actually changed up here. So very straightforward, pretty easy for you to do. And you can kind of go piece by piece through it to figure out exactly how to change things up here. And same thing with your projects, right? So if you did some sort of machine learning algorithm, alternating these squares algorithm project, or an ALS or something like that, you can actually hit save. It's going to reload the page, and now you can see, right, that's the title of your project, and it's actually going to link, and you can link it to different pages, right? So if you want to set up other pages, you can actually go in and do that in the routing here. So in this app routing module, right, we have one already set up for resume, right? So when we click the button to go to resume here, it's actually going to go to dash resume right now. But if we want to actually go to another page where you wanted to set up another HTML page with that project, or if you want to describe it in a different way, you can actually just add the path into here. So the path ALS for alternating least squares, component type, and then you're going to actually add in another component here, and then you're going to have to add that in up here. And I won't go through the details there, but if you get stuck, I think there's a lot of Angular documentation for you to add in additional pages. So you can get creative with it, and it should be pretty straightforward to be able to do. But we won't take too much time with that right now. Now, if you don't like the color scheme, that's totally fine. You can change the color scheme itself. You can actually change up the font if you want to. You can do a lot of customizing, and that's actually going to be found in the styles.css file here, right? So if you click into that here, we're going to see up at the top, I've added in or loaded in a few Google fonts that you can use. You can actually just, if you go to the Google Fonts website, you can actually just click the link for the import URL for any type of font that you want. You can also change the color scheme here, so you can see that I've referenced this all here. That's the great thing about Sass, is you can reference variables to create certain color combinations or anything that you want. So if you want to change it to, I wouldn't recommend this, but if you go with just green here, you can see we're going to change the color for that set of code, and then a lot of things are going to become green. So you can see here, like that background looks green now, and I think that might be one of the only things, but you can fix it up and change things up if you want to. So that's an example there of changing the colors. Google makes it very easy to import different fonts that you want there. So I won't take too much more time with that, but that's basically the way that is set up there. Once it's ready to go, right, so after you've done all the editing that you want, you're actually just going to close out of the terminal here, right? So you're not going to load it on your local device anymore, or on your local server. We're going to clear out here. And in order for these JavaScript frameworks to work, for you to bundle your code together, you actually have to build the code and compile it into just straight JavaScript. So Angular CLI makes that very easy for you to do. You can do the ng build command, and actually that's just going to compile the code. And what's going to happen is it's going to take a second here, but it's going to add another folder here called this dist folder, and that dist folder is going to be what's going to be used for our deployment, which we're going to try to get to the internet here in a second. So it'll be nice and ready to go. So you can see here it's building and compiling our code. The thing about these JavaScript frameworks is that it takes a lot of these files that are needed for the structure and setup, and it really condenses it down so that it doesn't make your website very slow. And it's a great way to do that. So there we go. So as you can see here, this dist folder was created. It's got all of our files that we need for deployment. So then the next thing that we need to do, right, is we need to I'm going to clear the screen out here, is we're going to have to work with Firebase. So Firebase is going to be our way that we're going to deploy, and it's very easy. It's free. So I'd highly recommend using it if you can for other projects for deployment. What you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to go to firebase.com. You'll have to log into the console. I added a few screenshots on the article for you to get to that point. But you're going to want to add a new project. So once you're in there, you're going to add a new project. We're going to say demo project, and we're going to hit continue. I'm sure we'll do Google Analytics for this. Hit continue here. You're going to have to link it to your Google account. So if you don't have a Google account, you'll have to set that up. And that's going to create this project here, right? So in order to get that running, right, we're going to let that kind of load there. What we're going to have to install is the the Firebase CLI, pretty much, to be able to do that. Similar to the Angular CLI, allows you to do things very quickly from the command line. The instructions are in the article on how to do that. I already have it installed, so I won't actually do that. But the first thing you'll do is just do Firebase init, and it's going to actually initialize this application and get it ready for setting up for deployment here. So it's going to take a second here. We'll go back here. right? So the demo project is set up. And now it's on your profile here. And so this hosting, right, is one of the basic services that Google allows and provides for you to get up and running here, right? So it's very nice in order to be able to do that. Sorry, my computer's running slow this morning. Probably need to restart it. Haven't done that yet. But there we go. So now we're in here, right? So are you ready to proceed, right? This is going to be template, right? And so from the Firebase CLI, right, it gives you instructions on what you want to set up for this folder. So great thing about Firebase, right, is if you really want to build out a comprehensive web application, you can set up a backend database, you can do all kinds of stuff. But for us, we're just going to basically just do hosting. So you're going to use the arrow keys to scroll down to hosting, hit the space bar, and it's going to set up. You're going to hit enter then, and then we're going to use an existing project, right? Because we just created that project there, and we can see here, right? We have a lot of our different ones set up, and not seeing ours here. So. Oh, demo project, here it is, right. Okay, so they may have just renamed it to something that we have to actually change up in a second. Haven't seen that before, but anyway, so that's we're linking it now to this project that we've set up, right, our demo project. Now, this is important, right? What do you want to use as your public directory, right? As I mentioned before, when we compiled our code and got it ready and built it for deployment, it's in this dist folder. So instead of their default of using public, we're just going to use dist. So type in dist. And then you can say no for this. We're going to say no for now for automatic deploys. And there we go. So now, before we actually deploy this, right, the final step is to actually just make sure that all the contents in this folder are being used for deployment. So the way to do that, right, is that once we hit Firebase init, we actually set up this, basically these two Firebase folders here, or these files, to get this ready to go. And the only thing that we actually have to do is we need to point it to the dist, but then data science portfolio template folder, right? So we get all that information there. Hit save, so save that. We're gonna hit there, and then we're just gonna do Firebase deploy, and hopefully this will actually be set up here after it deploys, right? And it's actually going to be exposed to the internet. You're going to have a link that you can actually use permanently. All right, so that was very quick, right? So we're going to we're actually going to follow this now. The hosting URL is there. We're going to open this on our web page, and there you go. So this is actually deployed to the internet. It has all the information, right? It has some of our changes that we've already made to it. Now, if you do want to go back and you say, oh, I actually made a mistake, the great thing about Firebase now is you have everything linked. All you really have to do is make any edit that you want inside of the folders that we had described earlier inside your components. You're going to save it, right? You're going to save any file that you made edits to. You can work locally, and that's the npm start, right? We're going to hit npm start and start it up. Then you're going to save anything. Everything looks good to go. Just do ng build again, right? It's going to actually build it back to your dist folder in a new version of it. And then after that, all you have to do is do Firebase deploy again. And then that's actually going to deploy the updated version to the internet of your files that you have set up here. So it's pretty straightforward and easy to do there. And then you have a data science portfolio up and running on the internet. And you can probably do this, this tutorial was in 25 minutes. Depending on how many edits that you want to make to the front end version of your website, you could do this in probably about an hour and a half or so, depending on how much you wanted to do there. So, again, feel free to play around with it. For those that actually have a fair amount of web development experience or work with Angular, I'd love to collaborate with others to make this template even better. I'm not a web developer at all, so learn a lot of this through self-teaching. So send a pull request if there are other items or things that you want to work on that could improve this or make this better. But the goal of this project really is for data scientists that have a little bit of HTML and CSS knowledge to really be able to get their projects out on the internet quickly and to do it in a way that's in a cool kind of custom template that allows you to kind of learn a little bit of the Angular framework before doing so. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out at any point. I'm happy to help out in any way that I can. My email address and my contact information are all on my version of this website, and happy to talk with anybody about collaborating on this template in the future. Thanks.